Hi everyone. The automotive industry has been active for more than 100 years. Some cars were very important or very eye-catching. Sometimes one car could transform the whole car company, both physically and economically. In history, there were some historical and important cars that people still appreciate. During the 2000s, some of the car manufacturers decided to remake some important cars from the past and did them well. However, there are some of the retro-style cars that manufacturers made that were not good. In fact, sometimes the manufacturers made an icon worse than the original. Today, we will talk about 7 modern retro-style cars that were bad, in my opinion. Before we get into the video, make sure to click on the subscribe button down below and click the bell for the notifications on any new videos on my channel. With that out of the way, let's get into today's video. Number 1. The Chevrolet SSR. The Chevrolet Trucks is one of the most popular vehicles in America for more than 50 years. The Chevrolet SSR is a performance pickup truck that came out in the early 2000s. The design was based on the Chevrolet Advanced design that came out in the late 1940s. The first years that the SSR came out had a V8, but with a poor performance that 0 to 60 takes 7.7 seconds. Worse, with the strange styling and this cheap interior, this was one of the ways that people did not like this car. Additionally, this car had an option for a convertible. When people think of trucks, people think of using it for a purpose and hauling it. But with these reasons and the confusion for the market, the SSR only had its production for 2 years. Number 2. The Ford Thunderbird. The original Ford Thunderbird is an American classic car. With its beauty and iconic styling, this is one of the favorites for the classic car lovers. In 2002, Ford reintroduced the Thunderbird, and the design was based on the first Thunderbird. With the idea of the iconic Thunderbird and now mixing with the modern standards, this car was not a good seller. First, the design was not that good and looked kind of cheap. It also does not feel the iconic feeling of the original car. The goal for this car is to aim for a luxurious grand tour, but this did not translate that well. Worse, the engine performance was not that good, that it had a V8 producing only 250 horsepower. When it came out, the sales for each year continued to fall and ended its production in 2005. Number 3. The Chrysler PT Cruiser. There is no doubt that the Chrysler PT Cruiser is one of the ugliest cars in the history of the automobiles. Its design was based on the Chrysler Airflow and modernized it with parts shared with the Dodge Neon. What it aimed was an affordable, compact, and retro-styled car for the public. Sadly, this is one of the worst cars Chrysler ever produced, both in the sales and the quality. The mechanical was very poorly designed and is not reliable. Also, the interior components were very cheap, that it felt like an economy car. With the strange styling, poor performance, and the cheapness in this car, this is one of the ugliest cars and the worst car to buy. Worse, this retro style car is not a car that people would enjoy and looking at. Number 4. The Hummer H2. The Humvee is one of the toughest SUVs of all time. When Humvee decided to make a civilian vehicle, they have introduced the H1. Today, the H1 is still a valuable car in the classic car market, even though it is large. When Hummer introduced the H2 around 2002, it was an expensive, large SUV that General Motors made. This car's design was based on the H1, but more of a daily vehicle for the masses. Since this was more aimed towards a daily vehicle to use, this car is still a ridiculous car to own. The fuel economy is very poor, that averages around 10 mpg. Also, the interior quality for the price of this car feels very cheap, that many of the parts are shared with other General Motors cars. The driving is very vague and not comfortable. For the performance, this car is very heavy, and the performance is very slow. In conclusion, people buy this car to show off their wealth and to become a big shot. This car's design is a joke for both the use and the overall styling. Number 5. The Ford Mustang II Cobra. One of the most iconic cars that Ford ever built is the Mustang. When people think of the Mustangs, they think of a powerful and a fast V8 muscle car. In the 1970s, the United States entered a fuel crisis where fuel is very expensive, and American cars had a large engine with poor fuel economy. Ford then decided to make the Mustang II, which uses the Ford Pinto's platform and aimed to be an economical version of the Mustang. The main problem for this car was its name, Mustang. Mustang is aimed to be a powerful car, and indeed, this generation did make a Cobra II, which was the top of the line Mustang. However, this car's performance is laughable, that 0 to 60 takes under 10 seconds with a top speed of 132 miles per hour. The Mustang II Cobra's design had some aesthetics from the 302 Boss that came out a few years earlier. Even with this poor American muscle car performance, the Mustang II was a big seller during this time. Although this is not a retro-style design, but the Mustang name is used to redesign the car into a different identity. Number 6. The Plymouth Prowler. When people think of hot rods, people think of the American V8 that has a lot of power. The Plymouth Prowler's design was based on a hot rod that came out in the late 1990s. The goal for this car is a performance coupe, even though the design is special and unique, but the performance is not. 0 to 60 takes more than 7 seconds with a V6 that has a top speed of 120 miles per hour. Besides the performance, this is not a practical car, where the trunk is small. In fact, Chrysler dealerships do give an option where it is possible to purchase a trailer for this car. When this car came out, this car costed around $44,000, which is expensive for a car that has little power and space. This car had a niche market where few people are very interested in this car. With the little amount of production numbers, where it is produced over 11,000 units, this car stopped its production in 2002 due to its poor sales. Number 7. The Jaguar S-Type. Jaguar introduced the S-Type in the early 2000s as a mid-size luxury sedan competing with the BMW 5 Series and the Mercedes E-Class. The design is based on the original S-Type that came out in the 1960s. At its time, this car had a pretty good performance that has an option of a V8 with 400 horsepower, and 0 to 60 takes 5.3 seconds. Additionally, this car does feel very luxurious at its time. As times move on, this car started to age badly. The biggest flop for this car is the reliability issue, especially with the engine and transmission. Also, with its design, it feels very outdated and not really that similar to the original. In fact, some people think that this is another version of the Ford Scorpio, one of the worst Ford sedans in history. Still, the performance is not bad, especially with the V8, but the repairs is going to be costly. Eventually, in 2010, Jaguar replaced the S-Type and replaced it with the XF. So there you have it. What are your thoughts on my list? Make sure to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't already, please make sure to check out my other videos. And as always, please make sure to click on the subscribe button down below and click the bell for the notifications on any new videos on my channel. Thank you.